it's really about him for me more than anything else. All the other question marks are about that roster are why I won't pick them to go deep.
Sure. But round one's a different.
But yeah, exactly. Round one against what I think is a vulnerable and overrated Bruins team. And I just think good luck stopping this guy. And one of my core Stanley Cup contender beliefs is you need a number one center, a true blue number one center who's playing at the top of his game. And Toronto has one of those. Boston does not.
That's true.
And the rest of that, we'll see how it goes because, yes, there are questions defensively. They're better defensemen. Are they built for playoff hockey? Fair question. What's happening in net? Fair question. I don't know. But with Auston Matthews, there's no question. And I think that he is the best player in the series.
Papi.
No offense to David Pastrnak, who is fantastic in his own right. But this is all about Auston Matthews for me. He's why I buy the stock.
The NHL playoffs are finally upon us, and we have our NHL playoff previews. An Eastern Conference matchup between Boston and Toronto. In my opinion, maybe the most interesting matchup of the first round of the playoffs. Second most, who you got number one?
If it happens, Dallas, Vegas.
Fair enough.
We are recording these before the West is fully settled. So
Yeah.
take it with a grain of salt.
A dead giveaway.
But Toronto, Boston, not quite perennial, but it feels like we've watched this movie before.
Classic matchup.
Yeah. And Boston has gotten the better of it very much so of late in the last decade or so.
2.
Sure. I looked it up once, and I think they've won like 11 of the last 12 series or something outrageous. It's not close. So
What have I done?
we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, who you guys want to start with, Toronto or Boston?
Toronto.
All right. We'll
The
go
better
Leafs.
team.
Okay, slow down, pal. Leafs first. No one is going to tell you that the Leafs are a bad team. They are a very, very solid team, even if they have not won a game against Boston this season. But a team full of high-end talent, certainly on the forward end. I think your questions reside more so on the back end than anything with this team. Are they a good enough team to outscore some of their problems?
So, as the one buying Toronto stock here in this series in particular, this is really just me riding Auston Matthews and the fact that he's just been unstoppable.
That's the guy you should be riding if you're going with Toronto.
That's really it. Is I think that Auston Matthews is due for one of those playoff series where he just takes over. You know, a Johan Franzen 9 goals in 4 games kind of beat down.
Except for he actually shoots them into the net.
Sure, as long as they go into the net, buddy. And I just, I guess it's just like you just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting in this guy's career. And I've always thought he was a much better two-way player than he's ultimately been given credit for. Given his size and strength and everything, he should be built for the postseason. And I think this is a really vulnerable Boston team. And with the heater that Auston Matthews is on right now, it's really about him for me more than anything else. All the other question marks are about that roster are why I won't pick them to go deep.
Sure. But round one's a different.
But yeah, exactly. Round one against what I think is a vulnerable and overrated Bruins team. And I just think good luck stopping this guy. And one of my core Stanley Cup contender beliefs is you need a number one center, a true blue number one center who's playing at the top of his game. And Toronto has one of those. Boston does not.
That's true.
And the rest of that, we'll see how it goes because, yes, there are questions defensively. They're better defensemen. Are they built for playoff hockey? Fair question. What's happening in net? Fair question. I don't know. But with Auston Matthews, there's no question. And I think that he is the best player in the series.
Papi.
No offense to David Pastrnak, who is fantastic in his own right. But this is all about Auston Matthews for me. He's why I buy the stock.
Don't blame you for being all about Auston Matthews when he's at the top of their point producer list. And
I like the stock.
you look at the team around him as well, right? There's a whole lot of high-end talent right there. Sure, Matthews, Nylander, Marner alone. John Tavares is no slouch as the 2C or the whatever role you want to put him in.
He's pretty slouchy.
No, he's just traitorous. He's not slouchy. Then you do have Morgan Riley as the defensive guy there as well. So, Eric, the eternal question. They say defense wins championships. Is Toronto's forward core good enough to overcome a defense that certainly on paper doesn't look championship caliber?
You mean Toronto's?
Did I not say Toronto? I meant Toronto.
Toronto, yeah. I look at this and the great graphic there by Dwayne, like I get excited. I'm a hockey purist, so when you see 2 original 6 teams, I think it's awesome. You know what I mean? 2 passionate fan bases. Excited to see that matchup. I like what AJ's saying. And again, how can you not, pick Toronto, and how can you not pick Boston? I mean, that's why I think it's going to be a long series, and I can see why you're buying stock on Matthews. I personally picked Boston with you, but what I'm saying is when it comes down to Toronto, you just saw the graphic there with their core players. So it flipped the switch on the Avalanche here. So this is their core, right? There's 5 players. So you're thinking of, obviously Mikko, Kale, Mac, whoever, Taze, you know what I mean? So this is their core. So when you look at it is how long till they actually do something in the playoffs, right? And it's been...
So they did get out of round 1 last year. Does that take a little bit of the monkey off the back?
Maybe, but then it's like, and then they go and had a shitty second round, right? So now it's like, okay, kind of erases it. So now it makes you look now, this is their year. So I can see why AJ's taken stock with the Leafs because of Matthews. Because at some point, if this doesn't work, you have to look at your, I don't care what people say, you have to look at your core. Like, it's just not working. And you're going to say, like, oh, yeah, but there's their defense. Like, the question you just asked me is probably not a Stanley Cup. When you're thinking on a blueprint, Stanley Cup defending decor. Yeah. I mean, like Stanley Cup championship decor. I agree with you. I don't think it is. But then it's because the money's so tied up with those guys that, right? You see what I'm saying? So it's like, so you have to figure out. So if those guys can't do it with that decor, maybe they'll never get it done. So you have to figure out, and again, that's for Brad and his staff to figure out, how do we go about it now?
Brad being Treliving.
Yeah, Brad Treliving. So yeah, that's for the management, and like how do we go about fixing this? Because this money to those 5 guys is not working out. Right? I don't know. And how do we fix the D if our money's tied there? I know Tavares has got, what has he got, 1 more year or whatever it is. And
that bum will sign for $4 million in Toronto.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying is, like, obviously there's some money that's going to come out. You won't be coming back at that salary.
No,
you know what I mean? If he's coming back. So, but then again, you have to, how do you construct that defensive?
I tell you what, you're going to need to get better goaltending too.
Well, that's all part of it. So, I mean, what they do, they, whatever they decided to do with Samsonov worked to a certain extent. We'll see until the playoffs, right? I mean, so whatever they did, the reset, sending him down.
I mean, he's not posting 870s anymore, I guess.
No, I know, but I mean, like, obviously he's been a lot better, but then we'll see. Everything goes out the window this weekend.
Well, and I think that goaltending is where you look at Boston and you say that's their biggest advantage. Yep. You look at Toronto's biggest advantage, it's Auston Matthews against Pavel Zacha.
Oh, that's not close.
Yeah, I guess he's the 1C.
No,
exactly.
It's not
just
close.
Auston Matthews
or Charlie Coyle or whatever.
Auston Matthews is a top 5 player in the NHL right now, and Pavel Zacha is not. So you're talking a genuine question: would Pavel Zacha be the worst 1C in the postseason this year of the 16 teams?
So let me ask you a question. But yeah, I mean, you would. I mean. Again, we're not downplaying the player. It's just not
be worse.
That was my
You're right, but I know what you're saying. You're not downplaying the player. It's just slotted in the wrong place. There's nobody else.
Right.
or Charlie Coyle.
Yeah,
or
but however you
whatever.
feel about Pavel
Yeah,
Zacha or
yeah.
Charlie Coyle, it's the same
It's
conversation.
just, they're good players. They're just not number one guys, and you can't
Right.
compare them to Nathan McKinnon, Auston Matthews.
Well, and he's going against Auston Matthews. He's going against I won't say his name, but you are talking about that is where the strength of their team is. That is where the weakness of the Bruins is. And in net, I mean, it's a perfect contrast of strengths
they're
and
opposites.
weaknesses.
They're opposites.
And so it's dumb of me to go against the core tenant that has been winning Stanley Cups for 100 years of you want the better goaltender.
Okay, I got a question. Stop you right there. Can I be you and ask the question?
Go right
Who do you
ahead.
start in net?
If
If you're
team?
Monty, Jim Montgomery, who do you start in net for
It's
Boston?
Jeremy Swayman. He's my guy.
Okay,
Jeremy Swayman might be my favorite goaltender in the NHL who is not Andre Vasilevsky.
who's your guy?
We'll just go out of order here since we're talking
Sorry.
about it, because I did put Boston's X factor as their goaltenders. The reality of this situation is they have two very good goaltenders. I don't want to take anything away from that, but how many playoffs have we gone into
Yes.
and
That's a
said
great point.
tandems don't work in the playoffs, man?
Yeah. Well, because a
I would
coach
start Swayman for the record.
coaches get jumpy. You have a weak performance and a coach will get jumpy and he'll pull a guy. He'll play the other guy. That guy doesn't play well. And now he has to try and go back to that guy where he has to play the second guy who's also not playing very well. It's a mess. It has consistently been a mess. It has been a mess for my entire life. These kinds of things have not gone well in the postseason. You need to decide who is the guy.
So we'll talk about the Islanders later on.
We definitely will.
All right.
You can tell the order in which we record this based on how these conversations
sorry,
go.
yeah.
Might be out already.
Yeah,
But-
who knows? Sorry.
Yeah. But for me, it's Swayman because that's the guy with swagger. That's the guy with moxie. He will grit and grind his way through a game, and Linus Ullmark won't. If Linus Ullmark is bad, Linus Ullmark is bad. That is it. Swayman works his way through games in a way that I want out of a goaltender personally. I will take a goalie that I maybe isn't quite as good because I don't know. I really don't know which guy's better. I don't know. I think they're so close that I like Swayman more because I think he's got the attitude. He's got that swagger about him in the postseason.
It doesn't even matter which one's better to me. I'm not starting a guy who is a no-move contract away from being an LA King.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right there. That's you said it.
It's a great
And then
point.
can I answer my question too? I'm
Yeah,
going
oh,
Swayman
yes,
too.
sorry.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But I agree with what you just said. First and foremost, like you basically told the guy,
Exactly.
like, we don't need you. But hey, come play good in the net, big fella. Yeah, I don't know. That's
It could
tough
piss
one.
him off though,
Well,
in the fun way where he's like,
Maybe.
"You trying to move me? Oh, I'll help."
here's what I'll take. And then I'm not talking on behalf of anybody from their organization, but this is what I think they learned last year. They got that record-breaking season, right?
It's fine. He's French.
Record, not record. They have that record-breaking season, and let's call a spade a spade. Like, Allmark did not play well in the playoffs. So, and they were saying he was injured. I think this is what they learned. I think what they learn is their guy is Swayman, because I think what you just said about the moxie and the swagger is exactly what they found out last year, because you don't know until you get there. And I think this is why he's going to be their guy, and they're going to stick with him. And then the other guy will be gone by the summer.
To hear.
We can bring this back
Possibly.
around to Boston as a whole this season. They've made it work. Their record is solid with a forward core that
Has questions.
Pasternak's awesome. No one's taking anything away from David Pastrnak.
Yeah.
But everything else in that forward core, you're not super confident about.
It's their biggest disadvantage in the series.
With that being said, they also have the Charlie McAvoys of the world.
Yep.
So let me ask.
A guy built to shine, particularly in the postseason.
Yep. Not even necessarily the production, though he is their highest producing defenseman. But you can see, look, Pastrnak, great player. They don't have another guy at even 70 points. Not that Brad Marchand isn't awesome.
Just took a step back. He's slowing down.
Happens to
He's
everyone.
getting older.
Yeah.
Father time.
It's interesting because I think you're certainly giving Boston the check mark in goal. Pretty sure you're giving them the defensive check mark.
Yes.
But
Yes.
can as you put it, top 5 player in the world, Auston Matthews, supercharge Toronto past some of those negatives?
Well, and that's where let's get into our predictions of it.
Do want to do that very quickly, though. We do have the Toronto X Factor as well.
Oh, who's that?
I ended up putting Jake McCabe as the Toronto's X Factor, more so as a representative of Toronto's defense as a whole.
Yeah, because when you talk about Morgan Riley and Timothy Liljegren, you're talking about
They play offense.
puck movers.
Yeah.
And for the record, I'm a really big fan of Timothy Liljegren. I think he's very underrated.
Sandman's better, but sure.
How does he handle the postseason where guys are hitting him in a way that he does not handle in the regular season? It's the same question that Avalanche fans have with Sam Girard.
Yep.
How does this translate? And Jake McCabe, I think, is an important. He's their Josh Manson. He's as Eric would say, he's the whiskey drinker.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's why it's a good choice. I think because
Yeah.
I think they were talking about all summer about, Brad Trelvin comes up with the words like snarl and and it's exactly Jake McCabe fits that.
Yeah.
Like Domi and Bertuzzi up front, and forget about Ryan Reeves, but I'm talking about guys that play
Everybody has.
a more prominent, prominent. But you know what? He's been good down the stretch, by the way, for their team. Whatever, for what he does.
The difference is Jake McCabe is going to play 18
that's
minutes
what I'm
a
saying.
night, and Ryan Reeves is going to play 3.
That's what I'm saying. I agree. What I'm saying is I agree with the Domis and the Bertuzzis, and they brought a different dimension to their team, and that's why I think it'll be an interesting series.
Yeah, and Jake McCabe needs to play probably over his head a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is where I think Boston's weaker forward core opens the door for Jake McCabe to have a 1D caliber of playoff series.
Have to stop an Auston Matthews.
Exactly. He's not trying to go against that. And that's where we're talking about salary cap and how can they win the cup and all that. It doesn't matter. They have to win 4 games before Boston can win 4 games.
Yep.
That's what's in front of them. And that's where I'm just banking on Auston Matthews being special.
All right, let's get into those predictions. Auston Matthews being special has AJ on the Toronto side of it. I know you have another stat locked and loaded here on Boston as well.
Yeah. So Boston came out of the gates great. And I went and checked right before we went live, which is why Rudo knows this. But Boston tied for 17th with Vegas in regulation wins since January 1st. This is not the Avalanche. Oh, they've had a bad 8 games.
It's been 3 months.
This is months that they have just been mediocre. Yeah. They would not be in the position that they are in right now without overtime. Both winning and losing. A ton of overtime for the Bruins this year. And that's where I'm kind of selling.
If it was anybody but Toronto, I believe you.
Fair enough. I mean, I get it, obviously.
I'm buying because of what you're saying. I agree with, but that's, when you put that much in the bank until Christmas, then you know what? It is what it is. And you don't make the playoffs or win the cup in the first couple months of the season, but you sure can lose it. But you also can solidify your position in the dance by winning early, and then go with it. And whatever the reasons are, I think this is why coaching will come into play. I do believe Jim Montgomery, and doesn't somewhere somehow he's got to be a freaking great coach. I mean, I don't care what people say. He's got to be
the other thing.
Yeah.
So I think
they get the coaching check mark for sure.
That's my point.
Maybe 2.
Yeah. And that's where I believe in them. And as much as you buy Matthews stock, and he is Mexican descent, right? And he loves Mexican food from his mom, right? So I'm buying pasta. You know what I mean? I'm buying pasta stock.
Italian.
And I love Mexican food too, but I mean,
I had some really good gnocchi recently.
I'm
Good
buying
stuff.
the pasta. You know what I mean? This guy is just and he's so against what I believe as I don't like flashy, but this guy's so fun for the game. I think he does it in a way where he doesn't cross my line of old stubbornness, you know what I mean? But enough flair to make me I don't even know the guy, but I'm like, I like him. You know what I mean?
He's a dominant goal scorer.
You know what I mean? And on the ice and off the ice.
The thing about Pasta this year, it was year after year after year of, yes, Pasta's great, but, he's doing it next to Bergeron. He's doing it next to Krejci. This year, he's doing it by himself.
You saw those point totals. Yeah. Why isn't all the Nikita Kucherov on? Who's his next best player? Who's his next best player? Yeah. Braden Point almost scored 50 goals this year.
Exactly.
Playing next to Nikita Kucherov. What's happening with David Pastrnak? That guy is
he's unreal.
Incredible, and he does it. He is incredible, and if he was a center, I would buy more stock.
I know.
And that's just, again, that is a core tenet of how postseason success happens.
I agree.
I would put it this way. I picked this series in 7 for Boston. A guy who, in these previews, is notorious for picking sweeps.
Yeah.
Picked this series in 7.
There's more of those.
Come on. You know who I am at this point.
Of course.
But point being, if even I am picking this series to go 7, you know it's going to be a tight one, right?
Yeah, the one thing we have not talked about that I'm curious to see play out, the redemptive factor for Boston after such an embarrassing first round last year. But it's just not as good a team. And that's where I'm like, you guys can be as proud and fired up for this series as you want, but if Auston Matthews is just ramming pucks down your goaltender's throat the entire time, it won't matter.
Yep. If you're down 3-0, period into the game, you're in trouble. Put it that way.
Avs.
Yeah. Yep. All right. That is it for this series preview. Let us know your predictions down in the comments, what you think the series is going to go. Watch the rest of this playlist. I don't know how many are out at this moment that you're watching, but we're doing previews for every single team. So go check out the whole list.
We all silly like the mayor.